Princess Asilum talks about Earth, the birthplace of humanity, and shows her dress off to her close friend, Slain, who was born on Earth. She asks him various questions about the planet. A man walks into the room and Slain promises to finish the lessons on tomorrow. Zooming out, they are all in a massive ship orbiting the planet Earth below. In Japan, Inaho cooks a meal. At the same time, the news report states that the goodwill visit of Princess is a mere 3 days away. Inaho's sister, Warrant Officer Yuki, walks into the kitchen and yawns him good morning. On the bus, Nina and Inko read about the solar system history, the discovery of an artifact belonging to an ancient Martian civilization, the development of the hypergate on the moon by Apollo 17, paved the way for the human colonization and development of Mars. However, this resulted in the appearance of the Vers Empire, who claimed ownership of the Martian relics and all know their ancient technology, and proved to be the source of a long-standing conflict. Arriving at the school in the rebuilt city of Shinawara, the students learn how to pilot KG-6 slate beer while the history lesson broadcasts. Yuki finally arrives at the school, greeted by Lieutenant Marito. Later, at a bar, the lieutenant has a drink with Dr. Soma. Lieutenant Marito says he can't do his job without drinking. He tells Dr. Soma about a covered-up incident 15 years ago at Taneshima where his unit was powerless against the Martian cataphract. Nobody believes his story. Slain takes off a necklace he is wearing and gives it to her. Count Crudio comes in to inform the princess that her shuttle has arrived. Right after the princess and Edelritua leave, Count Crudio hits Slane's head with his cane. He tells him to know his place, derogatorily calling him a Terran. Count Crudio receives a message from Sazbaum Castle. Count Crudio has missed his final opportunity to dissuade Princess Asilum from the foreign trip. Count Sazbaum believes he shouldn't be concerned because if something were to happen to her, the 37 clans in orbit would not take it sitting down. Back in Shinawara, 2 civilians drive a truck. The princess arrives in a white limousine escorted by black cars and police motorcycles. Inaho, Akatsuki, and Calm arrive to watch from the bridge above the road. A civilian leaning against a wall pulls out his phone to talk to the other 2 civilians in the truck. Inko suddenly arrives to see the parade. As the students talk, the civilian points his phone at the passing limousine carrying the princess. The truck opens and missiles launch out of it. Inaho sees a missile reflection and calmly tells his friends to get out of there immediately. A missile hits several of the escort vehicles, but the limousine escapes undamaged. Just when they thought everything was fine, 2 missiles hit it at once. The princess crawls out of the limo and sees one more missile trying to finish her off. The act of terrorism is played up by the Count Sazbaum's propaganda to the orbital knights, claiming Princess Asilum's heartfelt wish for peace has been mercilessly crushed by a violent act of the treacherous Terrans. The grand task that has spanned generations, the Earthful operation, will now be carried out. Count Crudio arrives on the bridge of his landing castle, which targets Japan. Slain watches the screen on the floor as the landing castle approaches the Earth. Of the 37 landing castles remaining in orbit, the United Forces of Earth have confirmation of 19 coming down. Meanwhile, various orbital knights activate their cataphracts. In New Orleans, the landing castle targeting that city descends and causes mass destruction. The Vers Imperial Forces orbital knights continue their massive assault on Earth. The KG-7s and F-22s prepare their attack on the open landing castle at New Orleans. Missiles fly out of the rim of the landing castle. The UFE cannot intercept the missiles, which hit the underground communication cables and nearby buildings. Civilians begin to panic as various networks are down. The Alpha leader leads his squadron of F-22s close to the landing castle, but most of the fighters are sliced by laser beams. Learning of this, the KG-7 Aryan units begin to mobilize and are attack at will. They spot a Martian cataphract standing on top of a bridge, and they are no match for it. Around the world, the UFE is shown to be no match for the Vers Imperial forces. In Tokyo, Vlad and his Argiri destroy KG-7s with no mercy at all. The people of Earth are in fear, whereas Count Crudio looks at the Operation Earthfall as mere child's play. Orbital Knight Trilram enters the bridge of Crudio's landing castle and suggests that they begin their advance of Shinawara right away. If they plant their banner at the assassination scene, it will solidify the righteousness of the Vers cause. Crudio had intended to do this all along. However, the more pressing matter at hand is securing the drop site. Thus, Trilram requests he be allowed to do the honor. Crudio grants Trilram's request to apprehend the area's leaders and learn the details surrounding the princess' death. Inko, being part of the student council, helps find anyone who hasn't evacuated in large armored transport. Inaho is at home on the phone talking to his sister. Her plan was to leave the town in her car, but she and her comrades were put on standby and thus can't leave. Across the street, Inaho sees a cute girl. Inaho follows her and sees her under a bridge with Edo Rituo. He tells them both to flee. As Inaho approaches, the girl grabs his arm and apologizes for what she was about to do next. The girl says that they wish to go to the proper authorities and inform their people that they are safe. Inavo assumes they mean the embassy. He mentions the assassination of Princess Asilim the day before. The girl rapidly interrupts Inaho. She says that the princess is alive and that she didn't take part in the parade because the Earth's unaccustomed gravity made her feel ill, so a double took her place. Inavo says a transport will be at their location soon as he texted Inko earlier. He welcomes the girl and Edelrichuo to join him. Slane activates the panoramic cockpit of his sky carrier. He is to carry Trilram and his cataphract the Nilokraz to Earth under Count Crudio's orders. In Shinawara, Inko has picked up Dr. Soma, who offers his gratitude as he was rescued just as his car ran out of gas. She has also picked up Inaho and his two acquaintances. The transport breaks suddenly as they nearly hit a KG-7 area. Yuki is in the cockpit. She asserts that the evacuation in the location they are in is supposed to be finished, because a cataphract squad has been mobilized. Yuki tells them to find the safe place and hunker down while her cataphract squad holds the enemy off. Slane alerts Trilram that an enemy fighter formation is approaching from 1 o'clock. All of the F-22 Raptors target and fire missiles at the sky carrier and the Nilokraz it's carrying. However, a direct hit, there is absolutely no damage. Trilram appears to have taken control of the sky carrier carrying his Nilokraz and proceeds to wipe out the fighters himself. On the ground, a group of civilians stand on a ruined highway and observe the fighting below. Yuki receives the news that the fighter squadron has been wiped out. Now the enemy flying vehicle is continuing its advance towards Shinawara. The civilians on the highway spot their ride. They are, in fact, Ver's agents ordered by Trilram's clan to assassinate the princess. Sir Trilram lands it right in front of the agents. With one sweep its arm, the Nilokraz kills the agents. The leader's daughter, Rayet, watches in fear from the other side of the highway. Trilram spots Rayet and proceeds to kill her too. The destructive barrier deployed around the Nilokraz's body disintegrates the road with every movement. KG-7 Aryan pilot spots the Nilokraz attacking the civilian. They begin to fire on the Nilokraz. The shells fired by the KG-7s do not work on the Nilokraz. Although the weapons do not damage the Nilokraz, a distraction is provided so that Yuki can save the civilian. The Nilokraz destroys the KG-7s with ease. Only Yuki and Lieutenant Marito are left in that platoon. Lieutenant Marito decides to run headfirst into the Nilokraz and in the head where the cameras are. His assumption fails and his KG-7 is sliced in half. Yuki escapes carrying Rayet in the hand of her KG-7. Yuki meets up with the transport once more and tells them to take the girl aboard. She kicks the transport away to safety. The Nilokraz pushes the KG-7 onto the transport, knocking Yuki unconscious. The driver steps out of the transport and dies. Inko takes the wheel and drives away from the Nilokraz with the KG-7 at the back of the transport. Akatsuki climbs outside onto the roof of the transport to save Yuki. He is thrown off, but Inaho quickly grabs his hand. Unable to hold him, Akatsuki is disintegrated by the Nilokraz's destructive barrier. The transport escapes the wrath of the Nilokraz by driving into a tunnel. Inavo opens the cockpit of his sister's KG-7 and hears Lieutenant Marito on the radio. Lieutenant Marito informs Inavo that the Martian is following them. Inavo tells Calm about what he's been told and might be able to buy time for the ferry with the refugees to leave port if they act as decoys. They can reach the school from there and use the trainers and live-fire training rounds in the hangar. Count Sosbaum talks to Sir Trilram from his landing castle about the status of their rat extermination, getting rid of Rayet, the daughter of the leader of Martian agents on Earth that were brutally murdered by Sir Trilram. Meanwhile, Inaho, Inko, and Calm pull the door to the cataphract hangar at their school. Warrant Officer Kaizuko wakes from a hospital bed, greeted by Dr. Soma, who tells her to stay in bed. Lieutenant Marito meets up with Shigo at the military base he is stationed at. He is introduced to Captain Dorzana of the amphibious assault ship Watatsumi and her first officer Mizusaki. Lieutenant Marito informs them of Kaizuka, whom Lieutenant Marito believes is still fighting in the Northern District. Lieutenant Marito retorts that there are still people out there and that his kids' names were not on the passenger manifest. Neither were his students, so Captain Dorzana finally agrees to put in a request to HQ to form a rescue party and give Lieutenant Marito one landing craft. From the bridge in Shinawara, where Inaho and his friends hope to see the princess, Slane sits on a bench while contemplating the death of his best friend, the princess. Sosbaum and Trilram continue their conversation. Sosbaum is angered that Trilram failed to kill Rayet and lost track of where she may have gone to hide. Sosbaum says that as they do not have her location, they can simply blow the entire city up via meteor bombardment. Still, Trilram reminds Sosbaum that Count Crubio's landing castle is too close and might view it as an attack. Sosbaum orders Trilram to make sure Rayet doesn't go anywhere while he prepares to destroy Shinawara. In the hangar, Inavo shows Kaizuka the data he collected about the Martian cataphract on his phone. They know that it absorbs bullets and other objects too. For example, Calm and Inko launched a flying drone from a tunnel, but the Nilokras also incorporated it. Inavo assumes that the pilot can't see what is going on outside through his barrier, and notices that he gave up chasing them as they entered the tunnel. He deduces that he is using separate cameras that allow him to see, probably in the sky. Due to this, Dr. Soma takes the precaution of sealing up the curtains. The moment they go out, he will spot them, so they only have one chance. He, Inko, and Inaho are to pilot the cataphracts but require 2 more people for the decoy truck. Suddenly, Princess Asilim, still in her disguise, appears and volunteers for the task. Edelrichuo hesitates. Rayet volunteers to ride the truck to avenge her father's death. At sunrise, Lieutenant Marita prepares a mission with Shigo and 3 students. Nina suddenly hears explosions and points to 3 red lights in the sky. Mina says it is in the direction of the school. Lieutenant Marita realizes it is a signal for commencing attack. It was Kaizuka who fired the signal. As planned, Rayet drives the truck with Asilim, carrying Inaho and his KG-6 Slapier. Inko and Calm pilot 2 KG-6 Slapiers following them. Trilram's cameras instantly spot the truck with his target, Rayet, behind the wheel. Yuki tells the refugees in the school that they are moving out and to follow her and Edelrichuo. Inko spots the Nilokras at 10 o'clock. From the truck, Inaho spots through binoculars the flying camera drones Trilram uses to see with and commences the operation. The KG-6 units fire rockets at the cameras, much to the shock of Trilram, as Yuki guides the refugees out of the school into the tunnel. Inaho continues to fire rockets at the cameras from his truck with a plan. Dr. Soma and Yuki come out of the tunnel to find Lieutenant Marito standing atop the Yui amphibious assault ship Watatsumi, ready to evacuate civilians left in Shinawara. Unexpectedly, Slane flies his sky carrier into the battle. He is now in the eyes of the Nilokras as the cameras have been destroyed. Trilram thus asks Slane to give him the position of the truck Rayet is driving. Calm fires shots at the sky carrier. After several shots exchanged, Khan's KG-6 airbags deploy, but he and his KG-6 can still move. Slane's sky carrier, on the other hand, has taken severe damage on its left wing and is about to crash. Inavo climbs into the cockpit of his KG-6 on the truck. Rayet attempts to run circles around the Nilokras. Rayet tells Asilim, unaware of her identity, to run, for it is her that Trilram is after. Asilim climbs out of the truck and volunteers to buy them the time. The Watatsumi approaches. Asilim walks straight up to the Nilokras and condemns Trilram's outrageous behavior and revealing her true identity as his superior. She begins to glow and transforms her hair and clothes out of her disguise. Trilram cannot believe it. The Watatsumi approaches with Shigo, Nina, Kisaki, and Yutaro on Captain Darzana's bridge. Lieutenant Marito, who is next to the captain, gives the order to fire all missiles of the Martian cataphract. Rayet runs up to Princess Asilim, asking how she can be alive. Inko fires shots at the Nilokras, but they are still being absorbed. Inko lowers the aim and fires them rapidly at the suspension bridge the Nilokras and truck are on. The Nilokras falls into the water. Calm activates the flying drone, reporting to Inaho where water isn't being absorbed. Inavo uses his KG-6 Slapier's knife to stab the Nilokras in one of its weak spots and avenges his friend Akatsuki, while explaining to Trilram how he managed to defeat a supposedly invincible barrier. Inavo's friends and the UFE officers celebrate their victory, while Slane sees through his binoculars that his best friend is not dead. After the battle, Slane discovers that Trilram is still alive. Trilram says that they are leaving immediately. Slane cannot understand how Princess Asilim can be alive. Trilram is aware of this, so he vows to kill her. Learning that Trilram's clan are committing treason, Slane steals Trilram's gun and repeatedly shoots Trilram. Several meteors enter Earth's atmosphere. Slane observes the bombardment in his repaired sky carrier. Edelrichuo is thrilled to find the princess safe. Asilim sends her gratitude to Inaho, who properly introduces himself to her. Inaho is still unaware of her identity. She tells her name is Salem. With Kaizuka out of the room, Rayet, who is aware of Salem's identity already, stands idly by while Salem reveals that she is indeed the Asilim after transforming out of her disguise. Asilim believes that by showing herself to her grandfather, the Emperor, that she is alive and well, the war will end immediately. So she wishes to get in touch with Vers as soon as possible. But Inaho informs her about the jamming and destruction of telecommunications bases. He offers her an alternative to take her to a facility that can contact the Vers government. Inavo says that he will tell Kaizuka and the others about it. Still, Edelrichuo hesitates and tells Inaho that there is a Vers spy hidden among the Terrans, who is in league with the assassins. On the bridge, Yuki tests out her exoskeleton arm that Dr. Soma put on for her. At Castle Crudio, Slane informs Count Crudio of Sir Trilram's death. He tells Count Crudio that Sir Trilram was a count in the meteor bombardment instead of the truth. Count Crudio feels aggression from fellow orbital knight Count Sosbaum for targeting his territory and rhetorically asks if they have honor. Count Crudio immediately orders Vlad to hunt down the remnant Terrans to avenge the princess. Slane realizes that Count Crudio is trying to exploit the Asylum's death and that the assassination conspiracy has a ringleader. KG-7 pilot notices a Martian cataphract, Vlad's Argyri, that approaches the docks carrying a KG-7 by its head. The platoon begins firing on Argyri. Vlad powers up the Argyri's Aldnoah drive and deploys a beam katana. The projectile weapons of the KG-7s are no match for it. The Argyri throws katana the bridge of Commander Nakabayashi's ship and obliterates the crew. The Argyri pulls out its katana and approaches ship the students are on. The engines have been damaged, forcing Lieutenant Marito and Yuki to make temporary repairs. Salem feels she must talk to Vlad's pilot, but Edelrichuo fears that he may be in league with the assassins. Inaho tells Salem to stay there. He walks out, passes Inko and Khan, and says he will buy them time. Khan volunteers too, as does Inko. However, Inaho, as part of his plan, says he needs Inko up there. Inaho and Khan get into their KG-6 and face the Argyri. The rounds have no effect on the Argyri, so Inaho tries AP rounds. Inaho learns that the Argyri is using the Leidenfrost effect to drive the bullets off course. The Argyri's arm is held up by Inaho's KG-6, and a shipping container swings in, doing massive damage to the right side of the Argyri's head and its panoramic cockpit. Inko swings yet another shipping container to damage the Argyri, allowing Khan and Inaho to fire continuously at the Argyri. In the heat of the battle, Mizusaki arrives on the Watatsumi, just in time to fire a shell at the Argyri. Inaho orders a withdrawal from the battle. Inko calls out Inaho for his recklessness. Salem comes to thank Inaho. Later, at Castle Crudio, Slane requests that he be allowed to avenge Princess Asylum, but as Count Crudio told him he is not worthy. Slane stands by his point and demands to go into battle. Emperor Rare Regalia learns of the assassination of his granddaughter from a Verse Knight. Unlike the Orbital Knights, the Emperor has no agenda. When told it was a terrorist act, he says that it does not imply hostile intent from United Earth. The Emperor orders the Knight to inform the Yumi government that they are suspending hostilities to uncover the truth. At Castle Crudio, Count Crudio converses with Count Sosbaum. Tokyo and its surrounding cities have been conquered by Crudio. Count Sosbaum congratulates his fellow Orbital Knight, but he then asks where Sir Trilram is. Count Crudio regrets to inform Count Sosbaum that he has fallen in battle, caught in a meteor bombardment. Count Sosbaum finds this odd as he informs Sir Trilram about the bombardment. Slane sees Vlad and his Argyri return from his battle with the KG-6. An angry Vlad demands that his Argyri be repaired immediately. Slane wonders what he should do, knowing that the Orbital Knights knew that Princess Asylum was alive. If he does nothing, she really is assassinated sooner or later. Inaho and Inko are congratulated for saving the lives of Captain Magarich's crew and many civilians. Suddenly, several soldiers run past Dr. Soma's office. They say the Vers have announced an armistice. Salem deduces that her grandfather must be trying to put a stop to the Knights' outrageous behavior. Count Sosbaum is shown footage of the wreckage of the Nilokres and learns that Sir Trilram was not killed in the meteor bombardment, and so he issues an order to investigate Castle Crudio. Count Crudio places his hand upon a device in the audience chamber of his landing castle. Salem makes her way through the ship to speak to Captain Darzana so she can reveal her identity. Rayet suddenly appears and says not to underestimate the rebel, for they aren't the sort to obey the terms of an armistice. Breaking the armistice, a sky carrier drops the Argyri onto the Watatsumi. Vlad won't have the war end without him having a chance to redeem his honor. Mizusaki orders cataphracts to launch. Coming out of the audience chamber, Count Crudio tells his men to uncover the details of the princess's assassination per the Emperor's orders. Slane heads into the audience chamber to speak to the Emperor. Vlad is bent on vengeance and challenges the Watatsumi crew to pick up where they left off. The Argyri draws his beam katana and destroys several of the Watatsumi's gun turrets. Meanwhile, Slane runs into the holographic palace to find the Emperor. Inaho goes to his KG-6 despite protests from his sister. The Argyri draws out a second katana and slices two KG-7s at once. Slane enters the Emperor's bedroom they have met before. He informs the Emperor of the truth that Princess Asylum is alive and that it was the Orbital Knights who made an attempt on her life in their lust for war with Earth. Vlad proceeds to resume the fight with his nemesis, Inaho. Inaho has equipped his KG-6 with a tactical suit. Vlad laughs as he firmly believes that there is no armor his blades cannot slice through. The KG-6 is locked in combat with the Argyri. His classmates and the refugees cheer him on as they watch the battle on screen from the mess hall. calm as a maze as Inaho has used the blasts to disperse the blade's plasma. Inaho pulls both arms of the Argiri and asks the bridge to tilt the ship. Mizusaki gives the order. The KG-6 slips down the ship, dragging the Argiri with it. Inaho immediately deploys his airbags and ejects from the KG-6, leaving both cataphracts to fall into the water. The plasma reactive armor and water cause a vast steam explosion, destroying the KG-6, Argiri and Vlad. Inaho descends safely in his cockpit with 3 parachutes. Captain Durazana rhetorically asks Mizusaki that Inaho isn't an average student. Slane begs Emperor to stop the war without delay and to save Princess Asilam. Slane finishes his plea to the Emperor and turns off the audience chamber he is using. Count Sosbaum's hologram suddenly appears in the Emperor's bedroom. He has gotten to the Emperor before Slane has and passes off Slane's message to the Emperor as scandalous behavior to deceive him with lies. Count Sosbaum urges the Emperor to smite the earth with the iron fist of justice. The Emperor officially ends the armistice and redeclares war on Earth. The story continues as we see Princess being shocked by her grandfather's decision. Learning that Slane used the audience chamber to talk to the Emperor, Count Crudio orders his men to hunt him and execute him on the spot. Kaizuka comes into the mess hall to tell everyone to assemble in the briefing room. Captain Durazana drafts all of the students and some of the refugees as soldiers. Slane escapes gunfire from inside Castle Crudio as he is reeled into a sky carrier. He manages to launch himself. Inaho asks Salem what Aldno actually is. She explains that it is the technology belonging to a super civilization discovered in the ancient ruins on Vers, the world Inaho's people call Mars. The first person from Earth to make contact and awaken Aldno was Dr. Ray Regalia, her grandfather, the ruling emperor of Mars. The Aldno activation factor was burned into his genes. Only people who have the innate ability to activate Aldno are the emperor and his descendants, including Salem. However, the power can still be granted to, for example, the emperor shared his power with the Orbital Knights. The Orbital Knights use their power to create mighty castles and cataphracts to rule over the colonies. Utero reports enemy craft above Tangashima. Mizusaki orders Nina to take the ship to open water for anti-air combat. Shigo reports missile impact on Block 18 with no detonation. The sailors at the impact think it is a dud, but then it appears the projectile is alive as it begins spinning. It is a giant fist. It tears off some pipes and cables to damage the ship. The fists return to the Martian cataphract. Hellas, piloted by Femian on top of a high cliff. Inko sits in her cockpit and sees Inaho run past. Inaho opts for a KG-6 Slapier. His platoon leader, Kaizuko, orders him to be their marksman because he uses the trainer cataphract. Femian observes the cataphracts from high above, considering them to be pathetic. She initiates all 6 of the Hellas forearms for a rocket punch move. The KG-7s struggle to shoot down the flying fists. One of them grabs a KG-7 in mid-flight and crushes it to pieces. Captain believes the ship is done, so she orders non-combatants to abandon ship. Suddenly, a projectile from the sky destroys one of the Hellas fists headed towards the ship. The bridge crew wonders what's going on. HE rounds are discovered to be ineffective against the Hellas armor. However, from Inaho's long range, the blast pressure can still throw them off course. Inaho uses this technique to divert some of the fists into the cliff. With one last fist to destroy, Inaho runs out of ammo. Still, Slane arrives in his hijacked sky carrier and destroys the remaining fist. Count Crudio observes the fight at Tangashima from his landing castle. He orders a sky carrier to be prepared for his cataphract, the Tharsis. Captain Durazana orders Nina and Shigo to take the ship into the dock. The crew and refugees get off the Watatsumi. Mizusaki, who is supposed to be leading the refugees away under Captain's orders, informs the Captain and Shigo has made a discovery inside the cliff. The bridge crew sees that there is a Martian cataphract inside the cliff. The machine is the demon Lieutenant Mervido's unit saw 15 years ago. Just as it appears the Hellas has no weapons left, Femian transforms her cataphract. She ignites its rockets, flying upwards. The platoon struggles to fire at the Hellas. Inaho informs Slane that it's almost on them, to which Slane tells Inaho to keep quiet. Femian comes in for the second try. Inaho aims his rifle, but missiles suddenly come from the cliffs of Tangashima. The cliff crumbles as a ginormous flying ship comes out of it. It is the battleship Deucalion, and Princess Asilam appears on the bridge with the crew of the Watatsumi. Slane has finally found his friend. The Hellas heads directly for the bridge, but it is shot down by the sky carrier and KG-7. The Hellas transforms as it lands to prevent further damage, but the Deucalion runs over the Hellas as it lands. Slane demands that Inaho take him to see the princess, but Inaho requests that Slane answer his question first. Slane aims the sky carrier's guns towards the KG-6 and asks if they are exploiting the princess. Slane asks Inaho if he is the enemy. Inavo confirms it right after the sky carrier hits the water. Slane gains consciousness as he opens his eyes. The first person he sees is Count Crudio. Count Crudio asks for Slane's objectives. He remains silent, and a Martian soldier electrocutes him. Count Sosbaum messages Crudio, suggesting Slane has had enough. Still, Count Crudio believes they must not show pity to a member of a lower race. Yet Sosbaum retorts that if Slane dies, they will learn nothing and seek an audience with the Emperor. Count Crudio is informed by a soldier that they have located the wreckage of an orbital night cataphract on the island. He shows images of the heavily damaged Hellas belonging to Countess Femian. Count Crudio asks Slane who killed her, but Slane continues to remain silent. Count Crudio sticks his gun into Slane's mouth and asks. Slane cannot talk, and thus Crudio electrocutes him further and walks away. Princess Asylum has explained her situation to Captain Magbarge, but she finds it hard to believe the princess. Reigate suggests that if they disclose the information, perhaps the Mars Knights would stop attacking. However, communication satellites, telecom bases have been wiped out, and long-range transmissions are impossible thanks to the Martians' jamming signal. They will continue on their course to United Earth HQ in Russia. Until then, they will see to the Asylum's safety. Slane continues to suffer Count Crudio's torture. Slane finally talks and asks Count Crudio if he has sworn loyalty to Princess Asylum. Count Crudio does not reply, and Slane is tortured further, leading Slane to assume that Count Crudio is in on the assassination conspiracy and exploiting the assassination by crushing Princess Asylum's dream. As a cataphract heads for Castle Crudio, Count Crudio finally realizes the princess is actually alive and asks Slane if she is unharmed. Slane is released from the chains and falls to the floor. He rhetorically asks that if she were, would they assassinate her again? Count Crudio finally puts together the pieces off the puzzle. He realizes that Slane has shown true loyalty for going off in search of the princess on his own and risked the suffering of Wrath the Orbital Knights. Count Crudio asks the bridge of Castle Crudio to patch him through to United Earth headquarters to organize a ceasefire and their assistance in finding the princess. The cataphract approaching Castle Crudio has been detected. It is the Dioscuria, Count Sosbaum's personal cataphract, and waged destruction on Castle Crudio. The Dioscuria finds Slane, transforms, and escapes. Slane wakes up in a bed in Castle Sosbaum. According to Count Sosbaum, Count Crudio is dead. Count Sosbaum says he is indebted to Slane's father. Hence, he is obligated to repay that debt. Count Sosbaum reveals that he is the ringleader of the assassins. Mizusaki shows the captain a map of the 26 landing castle drop points confirmed before they lost contact with their main force. However, the Mars Knights consist of 37 clans. There is a possibility that other landing castles have come down. Therefore, they can minimize the likelihood of enemy encounters by plotting a route through low population density areas, avoiding radar and flying at low altitude. Meanwhile, Count Sosbaum shares a meal with Slane, but Slane is not hungry. He assures Slane that it is not poison because if he wanted to kill Slane, he would have done it so long ago. Slane wants to know why Count Sosbaum is so determined to conquer Earth. Count Sosbaum replies that it is a lord's duty to his vassals to fight to expand his territory. He believes they should seize the Earth's resources. Even so, Slane considers that there is no need to exploit Princess Asylum. Count Sosbaum reveals that he blames the royal family for dragging the Knights into the first Earth-Mars war in which his wife was killed by Heaven's fall. Slane suddenly draws a knife towards Count Sosbaum's throat. El Ritual and Princess Asylum arrive in the showers. Reigate listens to their conversation. El Ritual forgot to bring the princess new clothes. Hence, she runs to get them, leaving the princess in the showers alone. Reigate suddenly grabs the princess necklace and wraps it around the princess' neck, pulling tightly while pressing her body against Princess. The princess suffocates, and she falls to the floor. Nina reports that the Aldno drive is failing, and Mizusaki orders her to switch to auxiliary power. The Aldno drive shuts down, and the crew brace for impact under Mizusaki's command. The Deucalion lands in the Siberian snow. Inamo suspects something has happened to Salem and asks where she is. Kazaki reports to Mizusaki that damage to the hull is negligible and that departmental damage checks are underway. In the showers, Inaho cannot find any signs of breathing or pulse on Princess Asylum, so he attempts CPR. He will use the defibrillator, so he asks El Ritual for towers to dry off the princess. Inaho sets the countershock to 200 joules. Inaho tries mouth-to-mouth resuscitation again, and it works. He pulls away as the princess opens her eyes and coughs repeatedly. Suddenly, Reigate comes from the corner and grabs the captain's gun and points it at her. Reigate tells them to get back and fires a warning shot at the ceiling. Dr. Soma and the others back out as Reigate points the gun at the captain. Reigate reveals that she is a Versian or a Martian, as she corrects herself. She explains that the assassination was led by her father, a Martian spy living on Earth. He was promised a title and a reward if he killed the princess. But when her father completed his mission, he was put down like a dog to be silenced. She can't go back to being a Martian, but she is not a Terran either. She blames all that has happened on the princess. The princess stands up from behind her shower cubicle and apologizes to Rayet. She approaches Rayet at gunpoint. Rayet is both angry and confused and tries to fire at the princess, who has fallen to her knees. Hearing gunshots, Yubi opens the door and aims her gun at Rayet. Rayet raises the gun to her own head. Luckily, Inavo quickly throws Rayet to the floor and points the gun in a safe direction. Rayet stands up and gives the captain her gun back, who orders Kaizuka to take Rayet into custody. The Ultimate Drive comes online again, and the Deucalion launches into the air. Count Sazbaum walks and shows Slane data on Tamashima, the island where he was retrieved. Slane confirms he saw a ship that was most likely Aldno-equipped. Count Sazbaum asks if it was Princess Asilim that activated it. Still, Slane refuses to answer out of concern for her. Count Sazbaum shows Slane an image of the Deucalion, the cataphract belonging to Viscountess Orlane that has gravity control capability. Viscountess Orlane was the woman who was to be Count Sazbaum's wife. The Deucalion reaches United Forces of Earth headquarters in Russia. HQ grants the Deucalion docking clearance at the request of the captain. The refugees from Shinawara leave the Deucalion. Afterward, Princess Asilim broadcasts a speech all over the base, a call to end all hostilities and the truth of who wanted to assassinate her. Count Sazbaum observes this broadcast from his own landing castle. Count Sazbaum takes Slane to see Count Crudio's cataphract, the Tharsis, whom Sazbaum considered unworthy of piloting. Count Sazbaum says Princess Asilim's location has been pinpointed via laser transmission to the moon base. It is under the control of those who feel as he does, and thus the transmission to call for a ceasefire would not be heard of on Mars. The final battle is about to take place. Count Sazbaum suddenly shoots the handcuffs off of Slane's hands, stating that the debt to Slane's father has been paid, and offers Slane the choice to join his own forces or flee to Earth. Castle Sazbaum descends upon United Earth HQ against the wishes of the princess. The missile turrets and launchers from under the ice are futile against the landing castle, which destroys all the missile launchers defending the base. The bedrock has been perforated, and the warheads are descending towards the base complex. Count Sazbaum launches from the landing castle in his Dioscuria. The Shire and Falabella platoons are sent to engage the Dioscuria with KG-7 Arians, but they fail to shoot it. Rayet notices the battle in her prison cell, and one of her walls is destroyed. The Martian soldiers have received orders to search for Princess Asilim and terminate on sight. Princess Asilim is confused. Despite revealing her assassinations as a lie, people still fight and realize that war is their motive all along. She wonders what she can do now. All cataphract pilots are ordered by Mizusaki to move out at a moment's notice. Kaizuka alerts Inaho that he has a phone call from Princess Asilim. The latter declares that she will help too. She explains her reason to help as landing castles are powered by Aldno drives, which can be deactivated at the command of a member of the royal family or when the person who activates it dies. Inaho agrees to escort Princess Asilim to the enemy landing castle. The Dioscuria flies around the base while Slane steals another sky carrier and launches from Castle Sazbaum. Edelrichuo drives the princess through the base in an armored vehicle. Edelrichuo drives the vehicle off the exit and the Deucalion moves, knocking Ver's soldiers off as it rotates. The Ver's Imperial forces fire rockets at the vehicle. Rayet comes to their assistance in a KG-7 and promises to cover them. The Deucalion's hull door opens and Calm is there to get the princess to safety. Edelrichuo tells Asilim to go without her. Her Highness on board, the captain orders the Deucalion to lift off and launch missiles at the main gate to escape. The Deucalion rises above the Siberian snow, and Slane sees the ship from the island from the underground base. Rayet tells Edelrichuo to go back to the dock as she holds off a component of the Dioscuria. Inavo gives his strategy, carrying out cataphract combat from above using decoys to avoid being hit by anti-aircraft fire from Castle Sazbaum. The Mustang platoon drops from high above. Inavo uses his orange KG-6 Slapier equipped with armor to guide the rest of the platoon in. He lands on Castle Sazbaum and shoots several streams of shells at the anti-aircraft guns. More cataphracts descend now the anti-aircraft guns have been taken care of. Princess Asilim now drops in a KG-7 under the guidance of Lieutenant Marito. Suddenly, the Dioscuria swoop in from below and appear in front of the bridge of the Deucalion shoots down the ship. The Mustang platoon and Oldenburg platoon see the Deucalion plummeting towards them and move side. The crew of the Deucalion is barely alive as the ship is now embedded into Castle Sazbaum. Kaizuka finds Princess in the hull of the vessel. Lieutenant Marito confirms to Inko that they are okay. The captain orders Kaizuka and Princess to continue their mission while Inko and Inavo cover them. Princess Asilim wakes up in the second seat of Warrant Officer Kaizuka's KG-7. Count Sosbaum arrives in his Dioscuria and reveals that he was the mastermind behind the assassination. Inavo promises to hold an off while his sister, Inko, and Salem continue the mission. He dodges the Dioscuria's rocket-guided missiles using his armored KG-6. Yuki manages to break a hole in Castle Sosbaum. At the same time, Edelrichuo gets arrested by Ver's soldiers. The machines that Ray had fought combine with the Dioscuria. Count Sosbaum maximizes the potential of his cataphract, activating its dimensional barrier and drawing his beam sword. As Slane's Sky Carrier enters the battlefield, the Oldenburg platoon shoots him down and assists Inaho, but he tells them to fall back. The Dioscuria unleashes rocket punches on Inaho. The pilot tells Slane, whom they consider a Martian, to surrender. A Ver soldier saves Slane and informs him that Terran forces have entered the castle. While they are running, a KG-7 pilot kills the Ver soldier and Slane runs elsewhere. Slane manages to get to the Tharsis as UFE soldiers fire upon him. Slane manages to activate the Tharsis' all-no drive, contrary to his assumption that he had no activation factor because he was not a member of the royal family. The princess informs Kaizuka of the passage to the all-no chamber, but they have to proceed on foot. Inko sees Inaho's KG-6 as it crashes through the ceiling. The Dioscuria follows it and takes their fight inside the castle. The Mustang platoon's rounds cannot penetrate the Dioscuria's barrier. As blood runs down Inaho's face, he tells Inko to run. The Dioscuria rocket punches Inko's KG-7 while Inaho shoots the socket connecting to the Dioscuria's arm, which succeeds as he deduces that the Dioscuria must lower its barrier when the rockets activate. Inaho reshoots the Dioscuria to reveal the weak spots in its barrier and uses it to his advantage. He manages to knock the Dioscuria over, and the KG-6 walks on top of it. As an object is in contact, the barrier cannot be raised, allowing Inaho to injure Sosbaum by shooting at the cockpit. Slane overhears Count Sosbaum's scream from his Tharsis and rushes past two KG-7s without sustaining damage. Inko, Kaizuka, and the princess are out of their cataphracts, about to proceed to the Ulno chamber. Inavo stays behind in his KG-6 to destroy the Dioscuria. The KG-6 throws away its gun. Inavo challenges Count Sosbaum, who unleashes his rage upon Inaho, complaining about the loss of his fiancée. The Dioscuria uses its thrusters to push the KG-6 down the hallways and pins the KG-6 up against the wall while decapitating it. The KG-6 punches the Dioscuria in the abdomen/cockpit, which causes massive injuries to Count Sosbaum. Suddenly, the Tharsis comes from behind the corner and Slane sees that Orange has brought yet another Martian cataphract to its knees. Princess Asylum finally deactivates Castle Sosbaum's all-no drive. At the same time, the Tharsis barges into the Dioscuria and KG-6 and pushes it through the walls of the all-no chamber. Slane climbs out of the Tharsis while Princess Asylum opens up the KG-6 cockpit to find Inaho unconscious. Slane hears his friend's voice as she tells Inaho of the success. The princess helps Inaho out of the cockpit, but a gunshot from afar hits her back. A second gunshot makes her fall over while the airbags in her pilot's suit activate. She also drops the necklace. After witnessing much horror, Slane turns around to find Count Sosbaum with his smoking gun, who mockingly congratulates Slane for saving him, allowing him to shoot the princess. Heavily outraged, Slane pulls out his gun and shoots Count Sosbaum repeatedly until his pistol jams. As he tears up, Count Sosbaum is still alive and taps his head. Slane turns around to find an injured Inaho climbing out of the cockpit. He falls over and crawls to the Asylum's bleeding body, but Slane clears his gun and raises it against Inaho, ordering not to approach the body. Inaho remembers the voice and he draws his gun on him too, but Slane quickly shoots him in the head and the necklace falls. Sometime later, Yuki gives her a report about the last battle which occurred in December 2014. She highlights a victory for the UFE despite having casualties on both sides. She mentions the status of Princess Asylum, telling that her whereabouts are unknown. The end. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. See you next time.